The wind that swept across the dry plains carried dust, heat, and the quiet cruelty of men who believed no one would ever challenge them. The town of Red Hollow wasn't marked on most maps, and that was exactly how the men who ran it liked things. Law was something they laughed about over whiskey, and mercy was a word they had long buried under the floorboards of the saloon. That morning, the sun rose harsh and unforgiving, casting long shadows over the wooden structures that leaned like tired old men. A small crowd had gathered in the center of town, not out of kindness or concern, but out of curiosity. Some came because they feared the men in charge. Others came because cruelty, when repeated enough times, becomes entertainment. At the center of it all stood a crude wooden frame. From it hung a young Apache girl, her ankles bound tightly with rough rope, her body suspended upside down. Her long black hair brushed the dirt, tangled with dust and dried blood. Her face, bruised and streaked with tears, remained defiant despite everything. Her name was Ayanna. And she refused to beg. $99, one of the men barked, his voice thick with arrogance. That's all it takes to set her free. Ain't that a bargain? The man was known as Cutter Briggs, a scar-faced brute with a reputation for breaking bones and laughing while doing it. He paced in front of the crowd, twirling a knife in his hand as if this were all some twisted performance. No one, he taunted. No hero. No kind soul. Guess that means she ain't worth much. Ayanna closed her eyes briefly, steadying her breath. She had seen men like him before, men who mistook power for strength, cruelty for control. Back in her tribe, she had been taught that fear could either break you, or sharpen you. She chose the latter. Your money will not save you, she said quietly, her voice strained but steady. My people will come. Cutter laughed, loud and ugly. Your people. Girl, your people ain't even close. And even if they were, he leaned in closer, his breath sour. They wouldn't make it out alive. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some looked away. Others stared harder. And then, a horse's hooves broke the rhythm of the moment. Slow. Measured. Unhurried. Every head turned. A lone rider approached from the edge of town, his silhouette cutting through the glare of the sun. He wore a long, dust-coated coat and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. His horse was steady beneath him, as if it too understood the weight of the moment. He didn't rush. Didn't shout. He simply rode in, like he had all the time in the world. Cutter squinted. Well now, looks like we got ourselves a visitor. The stranger stopped a few yards away. For a moment, he said nothing. His gaze moved from the men, to the crowd, and finally to Ayanna. Something in his stillness made the air feel heavier. You lost, friend. Cutter sneered. The man tilted his head slightly. No. Just one word. Calm. Flat. It unsettled them more than anger ever could. Cutter smirked. Then maybe you're here for the show. Costs nothing to watch, unless you feel generous. The stranger slowly dismounted. Boots hit the dirt with a soft thud. He removed his gloves, one finger at a time, never breaking his quiet observation. How much? He asked. Cutter grinned wide. $99. Not a cent less. The stranger reached into his coat. For a brief second, tension snapped through the air like a drawn wire. Hands drifted toward holsters. Eyes narrowed. But instead of a gun, he pulled out a small leather pouch. He tossed it. Coins spilled across the dirt, glinting in the sunlight. Cutter crouched, counting quickly. Well, I'll be damned, he looked up. Looks like you just bought yourself a broken girl. The stranger didn't smile. Cut her down. Something in his tone made even Cutter hesitate for half a second. Then he shrugged. All right, boys. Let's give the man what he paid for. One of the thugs stepped forward, slicing through the rope. Ayanna fell hard to the ground, her body trembling as blood rushed back through her veins. She gasped, struggling to move. The stranger stepped forward, kneeling beside her. He gently cut the bindings from her wrists and ankles. "You can stand?" he asked quietly. She nodded, though her body betrayed her with a shudder. He offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. As she rose unsteadily, Cutter's voice cut through the moment. "Hold on now," he said, standing up. "We never said she'd leave." The stranger turned slowly. The town seemed to hold its breath. "What?" Cutter continued, smirking. "You paid for her, sure. But that don't mean we're done having fun." Ayanna stiffened. The stranger's expression didn't change, but something colder settled behind his eyes. "You took the money," he said. Cutter chuckled. "Yeah, and I'm thinking I might take it back." A few of the men laughed, stepping forward, hands resting on their guns. The stranger sighed, almost disappointed. "I was hoping you wouldn't say that." Cutter's smile faded just a little. "And why's that?" The man's hand moved, so fast it barely seemed real. A gunshot cracked through the air. Cutter staggered back, eyes wide, a dark stain spreading across his chest. Silence followed. Heavy. Absolute. Before anyone could react, 2 more shots rang out. 2 men dropped. Panic exploded. Guns were drawn, but the stranger was already moving. Precise. Controlled. Every shot deliberate. One by one, the men who had ruled Red Hollow fell into the dust. The crowd scattered, screams mixing with the thunder of gunfire. And then, it was over. The last echo faded into the open sky. The stranger stood still, gun lowered, breathing steady. Around him lay the broken remnants of men who thought themselves untouchable. Ayanna stared at him, her expression a mixture of shock, and something deeper. "Who are you?" she whispered. He holstered his weapon, glancing at her briefly. "No one," he said. But she knew better. Because no one didn't walk into hell, and walk out carrying justice with them, the town of Red Hollow would never be the same again. Word spread quickly, faster than the wind that carried dust through its empty streets. By sundown, whispers had already begun to take shape into legend. Some said a ghost had come to deliver judgment. Others claimed it was a bounty hunter with a score to settle. A few insisted he was something else entirely, something not bound by the laws of men. But the truth was simpler. He was a man who refused to look away. Ayanna sat near the edge of town, wrapped in a worn blanket someone had reluctantly offered her. Her body still ached, but the fire in her spirit burned brighter than ever. Across from her, the stranger adjusted his saddle, preparing to leave as quietly as he had arrived. "You're going," she said. It wasn't a question. He nodded slightly. "This place will settle itself now." She studied him carefully. Men like those, they don't exist alone. He paused. She was right. "There will be others," she continued. "They will come looking." He finished tightening the strap, then turned to face her. "Then they'll find something different waiting for them." Ayanna stood slowly, wincing but determined. "I should go back to my people." "You should," he agreed. "But I won't forget this." He met her gaze for a moment. "Good," he said. "Don't." There was a silence between them, not empty, but full of things neither needed to say. Finally, she spoke again. "You could have walked away." "So could they," he replied. That was the kind of man he was. Not driven by glory. Not chasing recognition. Just, unwilling to accept what others ignored. Ayanna gave a small nod. "Then I will tell them. About the man who came from nowhere." He shook his head. "Stories like that don't need names." She almost smiled. "Maybe not," she said. "But they need to be told." He mounted his horse, pulling the brim of his hat low once more. As he turned to leave, Ayanna called out. "There are more towns like this." He stopped, but didn't turn around. "I know." And with that, he rode off into the fading light. The road ahead was long. Endless, even. But somewhere, in another forgotten place, another injustice waited. And maybe, just maybe, a nameless gunslinger would answer again. Fire. If you enjoyed this powerful Wild West story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gripping, emotional, and action-packed tales of courage, justice, and survival. Your support keeps these stories alive. Bell.